Hi and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is another video in a series where I'm building a tribute to my Westone Pantera X390. In the previous videos I've been working on the neck, and in the last video I did all the inlays and all the dots on this neck. So in this episode I'm going to do all the fretwork and get this neck ready to go. So before I insert some frets, I'm first going to clean all the fret slots, and I'm using a feeler gauge which I have roughened up with a file. You can buy specialized tools, but 0.4mm feeler gauge with a serrated edge works fine. Time to prepare the fret wire, and I buy my fret wire on these big coils. There's plenty of fret wire here to do several guitars. And I went ahead and I cut several sections fret wire, which I can now use my radius jig on to make sure that the radius of my fret wire is similar, or preferably slightly smaller than the radius on my fretboard. In my case the fretboard has a radius of 12 inch, so I'm going to use this little jig to create a radius on my fret wire slightly less than the 12 inch. I made this radius jig myself, and if you don't have a jig already, or you don't know how to make one yourself, you can buy them from any number of luthier tools suppliers like Stu Crimson Guitars, TLC Guitar Goods, you name it. They all have a very similar variant of a fret wire radius jig. The jig consists of 3 bearing rollers through which you can feed your fret wire. And as you can see, because the top bearing, the top roller, is pressing down on the fret wire, it increases or decreases the radius. Now with the radius in, I can cut the wire to length, and I like to cut all 24 frets to length and then use my press to press them in. I've got my fret press set up, all ready to go, and I've already did some test frets, and this process is fairly easy. I can take one of my pre-cut frets, insert it into the fret slot, and usually I can do this by hand, and if the fret slot is too tight I can use a fretting hammer, and then use my press to press in the fret, just like that. And what I like to do is straight away cut off the excess, and what I like to call double press my frets. I'm going to press it once more, and that's because when cutting the excess from the fret, the end of the fret got slightly compressed, and there's a slight chance that it lifted up ever so slightly from the fretboard, and I like to have them seated perfectly, and that's why I like to double set or double press my frets just like so, so they're seated perfectly. And sometimes I also have to abandon my beliefs. Usually I don't use any super glue when pressing in the frets like I showed a moment ago, but I noticed some of these frets started lifting, especially in the center, and I think the oak isn't firm enough, isn't dense enough like ebony for example, to hold in the frets without the aid of a little bit of super glue. So yeah, sometimes you have to throw your beliefs overboard and do what is necessary for a particular guitar. So in this case I'm going to use some medium viscosity super glue in the fret slot. Very carefully not to overdo it, because I still don't want all kinds of super glue running over the fretboard. And keep it nice and clean. So just a tiny amount of super glue in the fret slot. Press in the fret. And then, like normal, cut off the excess. Press it again. And hold it here for just a couple of seconds for the glue to set. Like so. All the frets are pressed in and I've already done the side dot, so now it's time for my favorite part of any guitar build, and that's doing all the fretwork. Yeah, in this video I'm not going into too much details on the exact process, so if you'd like to know more, I already have a tutorial on my channel on how I do the fretwork, and if I remember I'll put a link right here and of course in the video description down below for you guys to check out if you'd like to know more about my process of doing all the fretwork. So yeah, first of all I'm going to make sure the neck is perfectly straight, then I'm going to put on some music and start working on these frets.
Yeah, all the frets are in, sidles are in, and now this neck is ready to go. And yeah, you might have noticed I'm not recording these episodes and in and outros in order. So you already had a sneak preview just now on the next episode in which I'll be working on the body for this guitar. So yeah, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, let me know in the comment section down below or by hitting that like button. If you're new to my channel and you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing to my channel so you won't miss out on any of my future uploads. And speaking of future uploads, I hope to see you all in the next episode. But until then, have a nice week.